The Hot and Hazy update in Grounded added 3 new armor sets, changed some existing piece effects and set bonuses, and each armor is now classified as either light, medium, or heavy. Prior to this update, the vast majority of players either used Ladybug armor or Spider armor. With both changing and with 3 new armor sets, it seems like the perfect time to reevaluate every armor set to see which one is best now. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any future Grounded videos. Let's get started. For those of you that only care about which armor set is best, I won't make you wait till the end of the video, but I do want to quickly explain how I graded every armor set before revealing which one is best. For each armor set, I looked at defense, their effect on stamina, piece effect and set bonus, and weighted them according to their importance and impact on normal gameplay. I also originally considered crafting cost and repair cost, but ultimately decided their impact was minimal and removed them from the grading. So what I decided to do was create a report card for each of the armor sets. So you're going to see one of these for each of the armor sets in the game currently, and this is just a sample. So on the left, you're going to see we have the 4 categories I just mentioned: defense, stamina, piece effect, and set bonus. They're going to be graded on a scale of 0 to 4, 4 being the highest, 0 being the lowest. For defense, I decided to just use the stat that was in the game because that made the most sense. So roly-poly armor is going to be a 4, clover armor is going to be a 0.5, every other armor is going to get their defense stat. Pretty straightforward. For stamina, I gave medium armor a 2, heavy armor a 1, and light armor a 3. The reason I did this was because medium armor has the same impact on stamina as prior to the Hot and Hazy update. Light armor has a positive effect, and heavy armor has a negative effect, meaning it's going to take longer to regenerate your stamina. And then I also gave a bonus point for any armor that had piece effects or set bonuses that improve your stamina. For piece effect and set bonus, I looked at how often a piece effect or set bonus was going to be active and how frequently it would be used. So for example, if one of them was always active and was used, could be used in pretty much any situation, it's going to get a higher grade than something that's super situational. And then initially, I also considered using crafting cost and repair cost in the equation for calculating the grade, but I ended up scrapping them because, to be honest, I've never really had an issue getting the pieces of crafting resources that I needed to either repair or craft anything in the game. Honestly, when you're playing through, you shouldn't have trouble doing that. And of course, once you finish everything, you'll probably end up having chests full of every resource, so it really shouldn't be that big of an issue. And then as you're going to see on the screen, there's going to be a red color that's weight. Rather than just doing this being a straightforward each thing's worth equal in the equation, I decided to weight them because I thought that was most fair. Since armor's primary role is to protect you with their defense, I decided to give that 50%. So that's going to give you, it's going to have half the score. Stamina is going to be at 25% because stamina, in my opinion, is impactful on a huge amount of your gameplay, whether you're attacking, running, anything like that. Piece effect and set bonus can be more situational. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're kind of irrelevant. So I gave them a little bit lower weighting, but combined they have about the same, they're going to have the same impact as stamina. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the grade. So each of the defense, stamina, piece effect, and set bonus is going to have somewhere between a 0 and 4. We're going to apply the weights. That's going to give us the raw grade. Once we get the raw grade, we're going to look at all the raw grades. Well, I looked at all the raw grades, and what I did was I took the highest grade and made that a 4.0. So basically I curved it up because I think the highest grade I got on raw was 3.25. So that would only end up being a B. But because I'm going to basically say whatever the best armor is going to get an A, I'm going to curve everything against that. So what I did was I took the 3.25, bumped that up to a 4.0, and that's going to be the final grade. So every raw grade you're going to see is going to be bumped up by about 23% to get their final grade. And then at the bottom, in the bottom right corner, you're going to see the grade that it's going to get. So in here, it's an A. And we're going to look at these for each of the armors. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you each of the armors in action, or the ones that I think need to be shown in action to show why I gave a grade. Some of them really don't matter that much, and some of them will probably take way too long to actually show. But for the ones that I think are important or worth discussing, I'm going to show you them in action. But for each of them, I am going to show you why I came up with a grade of them, and then I will show you the report card for them. And then, of course, for those of you that only cared about which armor is best in the game, we're going to start off on that one, so we can just talk about that right now. To me, it's going to be Spider Armor. So Spider Armor, in my opinion, is the best armor in the game right now. Now, you might be saying, how's that possible? It only has 2.5 defense. How can it be the best armor? Also, if you played the game prior to the Hot and Hazy update, I know a lot of people loved using the Spider Armor because it gave the quickness, which was faster movement speed. That was changed in the Hot and Hazy update. So now rather than giving movement speed, what it does is it has attack stamina, and what attack stamina does is it reduces the stamina cost of attacking. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. Basically what this means is when you attack, you're going to use some amount of stamina. This is going to reduce that amount. Because that's the piece effect, I believe each one of them is going to be 10%. So theoretically having all 3 of them, one should reduce your attack stamina probably by about 30%. I think that's how it works. And the Hunter's Prowess did not change, I don't believe. This increases stamina regeneration rate. So overall, the Spider Armor is just going to be super useful for general purpose. It's going to be great for using in pretty much any situation. It's the armor I use 95% of the time now. It has a defense of 2.5, which is above average. So overall, it's fantastic. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how it impacts stamina usage. So we're just going to go out here real quick. It'll be a little bit easier to see. What we're going to do is we're going to take our armor off first and show you what it looks like, how many swings we can get with the greatsword without it. So we're going to swing once, swing twice, swing 3 times, swing 4 times, and 5. So we got 5 swings without it, and our stamina was basically at 0. Now we're going to put it back on. All the way back up. And we're going to swing it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and still have a little bit of stamina. If we could have got 7 swings there. So it gave us basically 2 extra swings, which makes sense because that's probably about, is that about 30% more? Got something creeping over there. And it is a wolf spider coming back again, huh? That wolf spider hadn't been over here for a while. We don't want to mess with him right now, so we're going to go back in the house. So anyway, you can see it has a great impact. So basically, you're going to get 2 extra swings using the greatsword. It's going to vary based on each weapon depending on how much stamina they use. But overall, the spider armor, in my opinion, is going to be the best armor in the game. And we'll look at this report card real quick. So looking at the report card for the spider armor set, we're going to see the defense is 2.5. It gets a stamina score of 4. That's going to be the highest. It gets 3 by default because it's a light armor. And it's going to get a bonus point because both the piece effect and set bonus provide extra stamina bonuses. For piece effect, it's going to get a 4 in my opinion because it's going to reduce your attack stamina, which is super useful because you're going to be fighting pretty frequently when you're wandering around the yard or whether you're hunting insects for parts. And then the set bonus is going to give you stamina regeneration rate. So in my opinion, that's useful in every situation as well because you're going to be, if you're running across the yard, it's going to regenerate faster. If you're attacking, it's going to regenerate faster. No matter what you're doing when you're using stamina, it's going to regenerate faster. Overall, it had a raw grade of 3.25, and of course, like I said, this has the highest grade, so what I did was I rounded it up to 4.0, or I curved it up to 4.0, so it has A. So, Spider Armor, in my opinion right now, is the best armor in the game. If that's all you came for, that's all you care about, thank you for watching. Make sure you click the like button on the way out. For everyone else, we're going to get into all the other armor sets. If you want to stick around, great. If not, I'll catch you in the next video. The second best armor in the game right now, in my opinion, is going to be the new Antlion armor. This set was just added in the Hot and Hazy update. You're going to need to get it by getting Antlion parts from the sandbox. So we're over by the sandbox. Before we hop in there, I want to talk about the armor real quick. First up, you're going to notice it has 3.5 defense. That's the co-second highest defense in the game. The only one that's better is going to be the roly-poly armor, which we'll talk about shortly. It has a piece effect of sizzle protection. It is light armor. So because it's light armor, it's going to have better regeneration rate for your stamina. And it has a set bonus of quick draw. Now, real quick, it doesn't have any other bonuses for stamina, so it's going to get the basic 3.0 for its light armor ability for stamina. It's got 3.5 for defense. Sizzle protection is the piece effect. That means each one of these is going to give you sizzle protection. Now, what that's useful for is being in the sandbox. We're going to jump in the sandbox. I'm going to show you what happens when you have it on, when you don't have it on, just to show you the difference. And then when we look at quick draw, in my opinion, sizzle protection is kind of a low tier piece effect because it's really only useful currently in the sandbox. And how much time do you spend in the sandbox? It's also only useful during certain times in the sandbox. So once the sun goes down, you don't have sizzle in the sandbox anymore. At nighttime, there's no sizzle in the sandbox. And you can reduce the sizzle by using fresh defense, by eating mint chunks. And you can also have it go down by just going inside of any of the shaded areas or by building in the sandbox and providing yourself shade. So sizzle protection, in my opinion, is one of the probably the lowest rated piece effects in the game. Quick draw, on the other hand, could potentially be one of the highest rated in the game. The only issue with quick draw is it's not 100% active. So what it does is it increases bow and crossbow reload speed while in combat. The key there is going to be while in combat. So when you're shooting the bow and arrow, when you're shooting the insect bow, you're shooting the sprig bow, you're shooting the crow crossbow, they're going to have specific reload speeds. The insect bow and the sprig bow reload, I think, about 1.8 times faster than the crow crossbow based off of my testing. And what this is going to do is let you reload quicker, but only while in combat. Now, that's the key, because if you're just shooting, and if you shoot an insect, but you're trying to cheese it by standing up on a rock or on top of a leaf, it's not going to count as being in combat. It only counts as being in combat when you're actually set, when it says threat detected, you're actually in combat. When it does work, though, it's fantastic. In my opinion, if they change this to be all the time instead of while in combat, this would be probably one of my favorite set bonuses in the game. So let's real quick take a look at both the sizzle protection and the quick draw. So like I said, we're over here by the sandbox. I do need to be careful because I don't want to get ambushed by a bunch of ant lions, and there's usually a couple ant lions right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to fall maybe over here. There won't be one. You're going to see the sizzling effect is right here. So the sizzling, not really having much impact on us because we have the armor. You can see it's going up really slow. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our spider armor back on. You're going to see how much impact that has. Look how fast that's going up. So it's going up super fast. Then we put this back on and it goes down. But of course, like I said, all you have to do is go in the shade and then it goes back down. So the sizzle protection, of course, if you're wandering around here, if you're looking for treasure, this armor is going to be great. Because it's light armor, you're going to get stamina regeneration. But if you're anywhere else outside of here, it can be useful if you like using bows. But overall, for just using it in general usage, I would say the spider armor is just going to be better just because it's going to give you more stamina regeneration rate. But before we end, before we finish talking about the antlion armor, let's go. I'm going to go find some stink bugs and show you how quickly this thing does reload when it's on. It's actually fantastic. All right, so we found a couple of stink bugs over here, and what I did was I swapped out and put my spider armor back on. So I'm going to show you how fast the bows shoot with and without the quick draw bonus. So we're just going to shoot this guy right here. Hopefully. There's probably a bunch of them up here, but we want to make sure we just get them one at a time. All right, so we're going to shoot this guy. You're going to see it's shooting pretty quickly. Now we want to get over here. Stink bug's almost dead, to be honest, because they are really weak to arrows. So that's the basic effect of shooting it without the armor. So now we're going to put on the antlion armor. We're going to go attack that other one over there. You'll just see how much faster it is. When it's actually proccing, you can tell because it's almost like you have a semi-automatic bow. So this guy's sitting right here. Let's wait for this. Oh, this one's right here. Let's get this guy. Now watch. He's going to jump at us. We got to get out of there. With the insect bow, it might not be as noticeable, but you're going to notice it's much more pronounced when using the crow crossbow. So let's just wait for this stink to go away. We'll just shoot a couple arrows with a crow crossbow. The insect bow does have a super fast reload time, but I can confirm it's going to give you a faster time to kill when using this armor. So basically, with the spider armor on, we're going to shoot the crow crossbow. We're going to see it shoots. Look how long it takes to reload. It takes quite a bit of time. Now we're going to put our antlion armor on and go shoot one of the other stink bugs, because it only works when you're in combat, unfortunately. We're going to go over here and find ourselves this other stink bug, I think. Now, bam, watch how fast this thing reloads. Once we get in combat, he's going to probably jump at us, so we want to get out of the stink. And as you can see, it's not actually proccing there. This is the issue with it. Might kill us, to be honest. Oh, there it went. It shot pretty quick. So that you could see right there, it shoots. I don't even know if I caught it on camera because I was worried about running away. When you are in combat, it shoots a lot faster, but as you can see, sometimes for some reason it just doesn't proc, and I'm not exactly sure why that happens. Let's see if we can get one more real quick to actually see it in action. I need to get one that's where it doesn't just lunge at me. This one's sleeping here. Now you can see it. Look how much faster it's shooting. It's almost shooting. I killed it so much faster that time. You can see, so when it's in action, it's fantastic. So that's the antlion armor in action. So let's real quick take a look at its report card. So here's the antlion report card. You're going to see defense 3.5, as we mentioned. Stamina is 3.0. The piece effect, because it's the sizzle protection and it only really applies in the sandbox and not even all the time while you're in the sandbox, I gave it a 1.0. For set bonus, I'm giving it a 3. If it was active 100% of the time, I'd give this set bonus probably a 3.5 or a 4, to be completely honest, because when it works, it's fantastic. But as you can see, sometimes it just doesn't seem to activate even when you're in combat. And then for raw grade, it got a 3.0, but because we're curving things up to make sure we have one that's a 4.0, it ended up getting a final grade of a 3.69, which is an A-, coming in as our second best armor. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at our third best armor in the game currently. Our third armor set is going to be one of the newer ones as well. This is going to be the roly-poly armor. Now, for some of you, you might think this is the best armor in the game because it has the highest defense, as I mentioned earlier. It does have the highest defense of 4.0. It is heavy armor, however. That means it's going to slow your regeneration rate of stamina This is going to be super important when you're using it when you're attacking, because you're going to get fewer attacks overall versus the spider armor, but you're also going to have to wait longer for your stamina to completely regenerate. For a piece effect that has block stun, what that does is it increases the enemy stun gauge when blocking attacks. And then for a set bonus, it has invincible shielding, which is a chance to repair equipped shield when blocking an attack. Now, the way this armor is designed makes me think that it was specifically designed to be used with the Black Ant shield and either the Black Ant sword, and actually probably not even the Black Ant sword, most likely the Salt Morningstar. The Salt Morningstar has a high stun capability, and of course the Black Ant shield is used for blocking. So most likely when you're using this armor, what you're going to want to probably do is use a one-handed weapon with a shield if you want to get the best impact out of it. And the reason I'm rating it number 3, not number 2, not number 1, is because I personally don't like stun, number 1. I just don't think that the stun is useful. The only time I find stun to be useful in this game is when I'm fighting the Antlions. Using the Salt Morningstar, you can stun the Antlions every 3 hits or so, and the ones that are just wandering around that pop out of the sand, you can basically just not even get attacked by them. If you hit them 3 times quick enough, you'll stun them, and then you get them 3 more times, and they're dead, and then you just don't have to worry about them. The ones that are down in the tunnel, or guarding the tunnels, a little bit harder to stun, and they take a little bit longer to kill, but still, the Salt Morningstar is my go-to weapon in that one specific situation. They're also weak to salt, so that definitely helps. And in every other situation, I really don't use other stun weapons. I don't really use the hammer, even though you can block cancel the hammer and basically spam it, get more attacks with it. I just don't find stun to be super useful, and I just don't rely on it, because typically you end up killing things before you end up stunning them, or maybe you'll stun them one time before you kill them, because from my testing, it seemed like the second stun took longer than the first one, so it's almost like the stun gauge has a cooldown. So this would definitely help if you like stunning. It'll definitely be more useful in my opinion in the future if they improve the stunning ability of weapons, or if they improve stun in some way. But overall, I just don't find it super useful in that situation. And honestly, the only time I really use a shield is when I'm in the sandbox fighting the Antlions, and specifically the ones that are down in the guarding the tunnels, because they can throw an ant at you. They'll throw a black ant at you, and if they hit you with that, it will do a tremendous amount of damage. So I end up normally going in there either using the Antlion armor with the shield and the Salt Morningstar, or sometimes I just use the spider armor, because I can usually kill them before Sizzle does too much damage to me. But anyway, let's really quickly, before we show you the final grade for this, show you it in action. So before I showed you, when I used the spider armor, I was able to get 7 attacks with the Antlion Greatsword. With this one, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you're going to get 2 less attacks. That's one thing. You're also going to see the regeneration rate is a little bit slower, and in my opinion, that's the big thing for me. Now, I will say that I used the roly-poly armor to defeat the Broodmother solo on my newest survival world, playing on medium, and I was not able to beat her with the spider armor the first couple times, so I swapped over to the roly-poly armor, and this is because I'm not that great at perfect blocking, and honestly, I get really impatient and just try to swing wildly with my weapon, so it's probably part of my gameplay, but I've been trying to get better. But anyway, when I was fighting her using this armor, I was able to kill her because obviously it has the best defense. So when she hit me, it wasn't doing as much damage. When the ads were running around hitting me, they weren't doing as much damage. And then the one thing that frustrated me, if you saw me doing it, because I did stream it, was I kept running out of stamina when I was attacking her. When I'm using spider armor, I almost never run out of stamina when I'm attacking anything, because you can, like I said, you can get 7 hits in before you need to stop. And most of the insects in the backyard you can actually kill in way less than 7 hits, especially with a spicy level 7 Antlion Greatsword. But fighting her, basically, I would get a couple hits in, and because I'd have to run away or block, I was just running out of stamina constantly, so it took longer to kill her, but that's the situation for that. So let's take a look at the report card for the roly-poly armor. So as I mentioned, it's got the highest defense, so it's going to get a 4.0. For stamina, it's only going to get a 1 because it's heavy armor, so that's the default for heavy armor is going to be 1. It's below average. For piece effect and set bonus, I gave both of them a 2. To be honest, I guess they're just average in my opinion, because I don't use a shield very often, and also it's a chance to repair the shield. So if it repaired the shield every time, you could basically just have the shield and just never have it break. And the piece effect being to increase the stun gauge, like I said, I don't really rely on stun almost ever. I'm assuming some point in the future, because they've been putting so much emphasis on stun lately, that it might be necessary in the future to be able to survive some battles and maybe some tougher insects that are coming. But right now, because I don't rely on stun and I just don't find it that useful right now, I just gave it a 2 for that as well. So the raw grade was a 2.75. Curved up, it got a 3.38, which is good for a B+ and third on our list. So let's take a look at our 4th armor. Next up is my favorite armor prior to the Hot and Hazy update, and that's going to be Ladybug armor. Prior to this last update, I used this almost exclusively. The only time I didn't have it on was when I went into the Koi Pond or the Haze. Other than that, I used it 95% of the time with the Mint Mace, and I felt like I was a god. It has been nerfed slightly, and we'll talk about that in just a second. First, let's look at his defense. It does have a defense of 3.5, which is going to be the second highest in the game, only to the roly-poly armor. It is heavy armor, so like the roly-poly armor, it's going to have a negative impact on your stamina regeneration rate. The piece effect is going to be blocking strength. This did not change in the Hot and Hazy update. What blocking strength does is increases the amount of damage that can be blocked before being stunned. This is useful if you're not great at perfect blocking, if you're just using the shield or you miss your perfect blocks, you're going to be able to take more blocks before you get stunned. Because if you get stunned, you can end up taking a lot of damage, especially from the more beefy bugs. The set bonus is Scarlet Embrace. This probably looks familiar. This has not changed in name, but it has changed in impact. Prior to the Hot and Hazy update, Scarlet Embrace gave you a constant regeneration of your health. Now it only gives you a chance to apply temporary health regeneration when blocking an attack. So basically, you have to block to have a chance to regenerate your health. That's a super nerf. That made this far less useful than prior to this update. Now, I'm not going to show this armor in action because I don't really think it's necessary. It doesn't really do anything. I guess I could show you the blocking strength on and off, but just take a look at the report card. So the Ladybug armor's got 3.5 for defense. For stamina, it's got 1.0, same as the roly-poly armor. Piece effect, I gave it a 3 just because blocking strength can be useful, especially early on if you're not that great at perfect blocking. And then combining that with the high defense, it's going to save you in a lot of situations where you might otherwise perish. The set bonus, I'm giving it a 2.5. If this was constant regeneration of health, I'd probably give it a 4. But because it's just a chance, and when I say chance, I'm probably going to say that word a lot today when we're talking about set bonuses or piece effects. From my experience, chance in this game typically means about 10%. So that would mean that maybe 1 out of every 10 attacks, you're going to have a chance to, you're going to replenish some of your HP. So that's why I gave it a 2.5. It's slightly above average, but if it was constant, it would be a 4.0 without any question. For the raw grade, it got a 2.69, and the final grade, it's going to get a 3.31, coming in just below the roly-poly armor and a B+, same grade, just a little bit lower on the grade point average. So now let's take a look at our 5th armor. Next armor on our list is going to be the Koi Scale armor. This is one of the cooler looking ones in the game, in my opinion. Koi Scale armor has 2.5 defense, so it has the same defense as Spider armor. It is also light armor, so it's going to give you faster regeneration of your stamina. It doesn't have the stamina bonuses, so it's not as good for stamina as the Spider armor, but it does have better than average stamina regeneration rate. The piece effect is going to be perfect block, and what this does is it increases the chance to stun an enemy when performing a perfect block. And then the set bonus is going to be Dazzling Riposte. This increases damage done after a perfect block. If you're good at perfect blocking, this should probably be the only armor you use. It has good enough defense. If you can perfect block 100% of the time, I would probably only use this armor. And honestly, with the addition of the Parry Master to the game, I would say it's probably extremely useful now for even more people because it's much easier to perfect block now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how much extra damage it does. Now, to be completely honest, the Dazzling Riposte, while it does do extra damage, it's not that much extra damage. I was kind of disappointed. I thought it was going to do a tremendous amount of damage. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go find myself an Orb Weaver over here real quick, and we will see how much damage it actually does to both perfect blocking and not perfect blocking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Orb Weaver first. And actually, let's do one thing real quick. Let's make sure we turn off Coup de Grace because we don't want to accidentally get a crit and completely throw everything out of whack. So we will go over here. There's a couple Orb Weavers over here. Hopefully we can isolate them. And we will do that. All right, so here's an Orb Weaver. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Orb Weaver. I'm going to try to get one of them at a time. And I'm going to hit one of them to see how much damage I do. And then I'm going to try to perfect block. So it should shoot a web at me. We're going to hit it. So we did about, what, 2 bars of damage. And you saw how much damage it did. So we did about... Oh, there's a larva there. Jeez. So we did about to the V, I think. Let's see if I can perfect block this other one the first time to see how much more damage it does, because I don't think it's that great, to be honest. So as you can see, it only went down to about the... What is that? Instead of being the V, it went down to about... It's maybe about... It looks like it's about 10% more damage, to be honest. So it is useful. Listen, if you're good at perfect blocking... I would 100% use this armor all the time, honestly, in pretty much every situation, because it is going to give you that extra damage. It's also going to give you a chance to stun. I'm not that big of a fan of stun, so That's the Koi Scale armor in action. You can see the bonuses. One thing I think they need to look at overall, and this is just a little slight tangent while I walk back, is when they have, I think they need to up some of the percentages here. So like when things have a chance of doing things, instead of it being 10%, maybe it could be 20%, 25%. And then the things where it's like doing extra damage, like when you do a crit hit, it does double damage. But when you get a chance to do extra damage with this armor and with some other things, for example, like I'm not going to look at individual pieces, but like the marksman's cap, when I was looking at those testing, it's like you only get an extra 10% damage, which in the grand scheme of things is really not that useful because you're going to end up killing the insects before in the same number of hits. So it's right there. You could see it's going to take me 3 hits to kill it regardless. So to me, it's not that useful. It's going to help you a little bit, but it's not that great. So anyway, enough of the rant. Let's get back and look at the report card for the Koi Scale armor. So the Koi Scale armor came in at the exact same grade, oddly enough, as the Ladybug armor. So it's got a defense of 2.5. Because it's light armor, it's got a stamina of 3.0. Piece effect, I gave it a 2, only because like I said, I don't care about the stun gauge, honestly. And to me, and it's only a chance to stun, so it's just not that great. The set bonus, however, I gave it a 3.5. If it was a higher damage multiplier, or if it had a higher damage effect after perfect blocking, it would be a 4, no doubt. I think 3.5 is probably fair. As you could see, it did. Maybe it was 10%, 20% more damage. I couldn't really tell, but it wasn't really that much of a difference. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to end up helping you take down any insects quicker unless they're super, super beefy. So it might help you kill the Broodmother faster. Probably maybe the assistant manager if you can perfect block his attacks, or maybe a roly-poly. Maybe in the future when they have beefier insects, it'll help you in those. But anyway, the raw grade is going to be a 2.69. Final grade is going to be a 3.31. So it's going to get a B+, and it is on par with the Ladybug armor. So now let's take a look at our next armor set. Next up is B armor. This is going to be our first medium armor set. And B armor has 3 defense, so above average defense. It is medium armor, so it's going to have the same impact on stamina regeneration rate as all armors did prior to the Hot and Hazy update. It has a piece effect of bow stun, and it has a set bonus of pollen shot. Bow stun increases the stun of bows. Pollen shot is going to have it give arrows a chance to cripple enemies. That means it's basically just going to stop them from moving. And to be completely honest, this armor to me is kind of underwhelming. Now, if you do use it in conjunction with Sharpshooter, which has a chance of, I think it's either slowing or I think it's rooting your enemies, which is another one where basically you're just slowing them down. It can be okay. Because it's medium armor, it's not going to give you that extra effect. It does have good defense, but to be completely honest, like I'm going to reiterate this. I'm beating the dead horse here. Is I don't like stun in this game. I don't really care about stun. If you're using bows all the time, I'd probably use the antlion armor instead of this, just because they're going to get faster shots off. I guess if you're trying to fight multiple enemies at one time, this might be useful because combining it with the Sharpshooter would give you a better chance of basically just stopping the enemy. So you might be able to stun them, you might be able to cripple them, or you might be able to root them. So combining all of those together could be useful. But overall, the B armor, in my opinion, is it's a decent armor, but it's not one I'm probably going to be using. And I honestly really probably would. I actually liked it a little bit before the Hot and Hazy update, just because I just felt it played better. And I just don't like these things where they have a chance. Like I said, the chance is like 10%. So having a 10% chance to do the cripple, or even having the marksman having a 10% chance of rooting, or even if it's phase 3, maybe it's 30%. It's just not that great. So anyway, let's take a look at the report card for the B armor. So the B armor is going to come in at a final grade of B. It got a 3 for defense, obviously. The stamina is a 2, piece effect 2, and set bonus 2. So it's slightly above average. It's not going to get a C because the defense is higher. It got it up to a B, but everything else, in my opinion, is average. The raw grade was 2.5. The final grade was a 3.08. So like I said, it's a okay armor set. Maybe if you have any uses for it, if you use it all the time, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I can try it out in some different situations. But right now, if I'm using a bow, I'm probably going to go with the antlion armor, just because it's going to give me that extra speed of reloading. If I'm in combat with a insect that's going to require lots of shots, I'm going to be able to get off more shots faster, so my time to kill is going to be much slower, or much faster, I'm sorry. Whereas this one has a chance of slowing them down, chance of crippling them, chance of stunning them, stuff like that. And to me, it's not that great. I would show you in an action, but to be completely honest, because the things only proc like 10% of the time, I could be standing here forever to get. It might have proc every time, it might not proc at all, so it's just not really worth showing it. And I did test it a little bit for maybe like an hour or two a couple weeks ago when I was streaming. And all in all, after I used it, I put it down and put it on one of my armor dummies, and I never really even considered using it again. Next up on the list is going to be the Grub Armor. Now, honestly, this is an armor that I don't really use that often. I don't know if I've ever actually used it. In fact, I just crafted the goggles on here on a world that I'm on like day 180, and I discovered them, so I know I haven't used the one here because I've never crafted the goggles before to this point. Guess I never got the quest for them. But they could be useful, so let's get into it. The defense for it's going to be 1.5, so it's going to be below average. This is so far the lowest defense we've seen on an armor to this point. It is medium armor, so like the B armor, it's going to have the same impact on your stamina regeneration rate as the armors did prior to the Hot and Hazy update, so it's going to be neutral there. It's going to be right in the middle. And then it's got max stamina for a piece effect and optimize offense. Now, optimize offense, you're going to notice, is not in the OS unless they've added it. Let's go check real quick. I don't believe they've actually added it, but it was in the patch notes, so it's not in there. It was in the patch notes. What Optimize Offense does is it reduces the stamina cost of attacking. So essentially, it's the exact same piece. It's the same as the piece effect for the Spider Armor. So because of it having max stamina and the Optimize Offense, it does get a bonus point for the stamina regeneration rate. So instead of having 2 here, you'll see it'll have a 3. Now overall, these are useful piece effect. This is a useful piece effect, and it's a useful set bonus here. So you could use this armor. It probably is one of the better early game armors. I don't know why I've just never used it. I guess I just never thought about it because, to be honest, farming for grubs can be a little bit tedious. Sometimes you get lucky and you'll find a bunch of grubs. Other times you'll just get a bunch of larvae. And one tip real quick, just a little side thing is, if you're trying to find the grubs, just look for the little things that are tunneling and look for the ones that are making a sound like as if rocks are tumbling. So if you ever had a rock tumbler as a kid, it'll sound like rocks like rumbling against each other. Those are going to be the ones that are grubs. The ones that are not making noise are going to be the larvae. But that's just a little side tip. Anyway, let's take a look at the report card. There's no reason to see this in action because it doesn't really have any super useful effects. And like I said, it's going to have... Actually, you know what? Let's do real quick. Let's test one thing. Let's see how many attacks we can get with it with the sword. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So basically, well, it actually got a double attack there at the end. So basically, it's going to give you the exact same number of attacks as the Spider Armor. So if you're like me and can't manage stamina, maybe the next time I start a new playthrough, I'll consider using this early on. And my only downfall will be the fact that it has low defense, so I'm going to have to get better at perfect blocking. So anyway, let's take a look at the Grub Armor's report card. So the Grub Armor got 1.5 for defense. For stamina, it was going to be a 2, but because it has the piece effect and set bonus both improve your stamina, it's going to get a 3 for that, so it got the bonus point. Piece effect, in my opinion, of the max stamina is going to be a 3.5. And the set bonus of the optimized offense is going to be a 4.0. So it's going to get a raw grade of 2.44, final grade of 3.0, and it's going to come in with a B grade here. So overall, a pretty decent armor set, above average, and probably useful early on. But once you have access to the better armors, you're probably never going to use it again. But maybe if you're starting new, if you're starting fresh, consider using it early on just to help you with stamina. It'll be useful in pretty much every situation, to be honest. And as long as you're good at perfect blocking, it'd be decent to get up until the point where you get Koi Scale armor. Next up, we have our third and final new armor to the game, and this might be the one that shocks you the most for how low of a grade I've given it, and that's the Black Ant armor. So of course you have to get the Black Ant armor, you have to go into the Black Ant Hill, or you can actually go around the trash heap, but you're probably gonna have to go in the Black Ant Hill to get enough pieces to make this whole thing. It's got the second highest defense of 3.5. That's basically its best selling point here. It's gonna have good defense. It is heavy armor, so it's going to have the slowest regeneration rate of any of the armors in the game, obviously, because it's heavy. All the heavy armors have slow regeneration rate. The piece effect is stun. This increases enemy stun gauge when attacking. I'm not going to reiterate why I'm not a big fan of stun. And the set bonus is pincushion. Now, on paper, this sounds fantastic. Reflects a portion of damage taken back to the attacker. I'm going to show you it in action, and I'm going to tell you why this thing either needs a major buff or they need to change it, because it is pretty awful. It's probably one of the worst set bonuses in the game, if not the worst set bonus, in my opinion. But the stun thing is just not that great. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go show it in effect. What this I'm going to do is I'm going to go find either a wolf spot. I'm going to go find probably a orb weaver, or maybe we can find some larva or soldier ants, and you're going to see how little damage it actually does back to them. All right, I made a little detour. I found myself a ladybug. Ladybugs can do a decent amount of damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch this ladybug and see how much damage it does back to her when she hits me. And as you can see, it did very, very little damage. So she didn't do a lot of damage to me. Well, she did there. She's not doing very much damage to herself. So let's get out of here before she actually kills me. We're gonna run away. But as you can see, it did almost no damage to her. And she did quite a bit of damage to me. So that reflect damage there is actually quite pitiful. We're going to go test it on a soldier ant real quick, just to show you that it does basically scale with the insect's attack. So let's have this guy over here. Come here, buddy. Whoops, I one-shot him. Okay, let's find ourselves another soldier ant, hopefully. I have tested against pretty much every insect in the backyard, and it just is not that great. It's just so bad. Like, you'd have to sit there, and the armor might break before you actually do enough damage back to kill them. Look, he hit me. Look how little bit of damage it's doing to him. The worker ant's doing a little bit of damage to itself, but this is just, like, it's almost... It's definitely... It's worse than the 10% chance things. It's just doing so little damage that, in the grand scheme of things, it's just not worth it. And this armor, like I said, I didn't include the crafting cost or the repair cost. If I did, this armor would be even worse because you basically have to go to the Black Anthill to get the parts to repair it, unless you can happen to find a stray black soldier ant that wanders outside of the hill, maybe into the trash heap. So overall, it's just not a great armor, and the only thing that keeps it from being at the bottom is the fact that it has 3.5 defense. So let's take a look at the report card for the Black Ant armor. So as mentioned, the defense is 3.5. That's its biggest selling point. Stamina, it's going to get a 1 because it's heavy armor. The piece effect, I gave it a 2. I gave it a little bit of benefit of the doubt there because it does increase the stun damage or the stun gauge when attacking. So if you're attacking a beefy enemy, if you're using the Salt Morningstar, if you're using the Insect Hammer, you might be able to stun them a little bit quicker. Might be useful in that case, but I don't rely on stun. The set bonus, I gave it a 1. I mean, it just does so little damage. It needs a huge buff. Like, I don't expect it to have the insect attack me and basically just be able to sit there and AFK and have it do so much damage back that I will kill the insect before it kills me. But in my opinion, it just needs to do more. It needs to be probably 2 to 3 times stronger than what it is right now. And for a raw grade, it's going to get a 2.38. Final grade, it's going to get a 2.92. So that's going to come in as a B. So we're heading into the home stretch here. Let's take a look at the last 3 armors on our list. Next armor on our list is going to be the Acorn armor. This used to be one of my favorite armors to get early on, but honestly, after going through these armors, I'd say that the Grub armor is probably better to use overall. It has the same defense as the Grub armor of 1.5, but it is a heavy armor, whereas the Grub armor is medium, and the Grub armor also has stamina bonuses. So in stamina terms, this is going to be much worse than the Grub armor. The piece effect is going to be max health, so that's going to increase your maximum health pool, and the set bonus is uncrackable. That increases your stun resistance, so basically it means when you're getting attacked, it's going to take longer to stun you, which is useful. So I'm not going to show this in action. I don't really think it's worth showing in action, and I don't really think there's much more to be said about it. It looks pretty cool. I always said that I think it doesn't make any sense to you have full range of vision because it's got one eye hole, but people did say, well, if it had 50% range of vision or field of sight or whatever, nobody would use it, but I always thought that was kind of interesting. So let's take a look at the report card real quick. So as mentioned, the defense on this is going to be 1.5. The stamina, it's got a 1 because it's heavy armor. The piece effect, I did give it 3.5 because max health can be useful, especially early on, which is probably when you would be using this armor. And the set bonus of increases your stun resistance, also useful. Of course, if you're good at blocking or if you kill things quick enough, that's not going to really make that much of a difference. But early on, this is a decent armor. Overall, it's got a raw grade of 1.81. The final grade is going to be a 2.23, so it's going to come in as a C+. Of the early armors, obviously, as you can see on my ratings, it's much lower than the Grub armor. If I started a new playthrough right now, I think my plan would probably be to get the Grub armor instead of the Acorn armor, even though the Acorn armor is going to be much easier to get because the Acorns do respawn every day currently, which in my opinion is kind of ridiculous. You can basically just get stacks of Acorn shells and about a stack of Acorn tops every single day. So this is going to be super easy to craft and super easy to repair. The penultimate armor on our list is going to be Clover armor. Now this might surprise you because it has the lowest defense in the game at 0.5, but there is one that's worse than it. I'm sure you know what it is by now. It is light armor, so it's going to be decent on stamina, and it has a piece effect of Fuller. Fuller reduces your hunger drain, and it has a set bonus of Moist, which reduces your thirst drain. If you have trouble managing your hunger and thirst, this is useful. Honestly, when I start a new playthrough, I pretty much always make sure I craft myself Clover armor as soon as possible, just because it's going to allow me to go searching around for other things that are more important rather than having to worry about finding food and drink all the time. So it is useful early on. Honestly, of course, once you get the better armors, it's going to become pretty useless. after not that long of playing. However, it could be decent if you're just in your base. Maybe you're in your base, maybe you're in a base, or you're in a safe place where there's not any places the insects can get to you, where there's no danger around, and you're maybe just building, or you're just resorting stuff, or reorganizing your inventory, stuff like that. It could be useful for those cases where you're not gonna have to worry about any danger and you just don't want to worry about having to get food or drink. So it could be useful in those cases. But anyway, let's take a look at its report card. So overall, it's going to get a C+. It's got, the thing that brought it down tremendously was the defense, which is at 0.5. Stamina-wise, it's got a 3 because it is light armor. Piece effect, I gave it a 3, and set bonus, I gave it a 3. Reducing hunger drain and reducing thirst drain, pretty useful, especially early on. And like I said, you could even use it later on if you're just doing things that are casual, like walking around your base or reorganizing your base or something like that. It got a raw grade of 1.75 and a final grade of 2.15, which is a C+. If that defense was a little bit higher, this would be a much, much better armor. But like I said, usually I would craft a Crover armor and then probably hop one over and focus on getting the Acorn armor or the Grub armor. At this point, I'd probably go for the Grub armor. The final armor set, and in my opinion, currently the worst armor in Grounded, is going to be Red Ant armor. And the reason for that we'll talk about real quick. It has a defense of 1, so it's got the second worst defense in the game. The only thing it really has going for it is its light armor, so it's going to have to give you faster stamina regeneration. The piece effect is going to be hauling strength. This increases the amount of grass planks and weed stems that can be carried. So for each piece you put on, you can carry 1 extra weed stem or grass plank, which will mean using this will allow you to carry 8 instead of 5. If you drink a workers' comp smoothie, you can then carry 2 extra, which will give you 10. The set bonus is going to be Humant. What this does is red soldier ants will ignore you and they won't attack you unless you steal an egg or unless you attack a soldier ant or a red soldier ant or a red worker ant. And then, of course, the red worker ants will no longer become curious, so they will stop bothering you. So basically, this armor is really only useful if you're gathering weed stems and grass planks and building. And honestly, I don't even use it for that because I usually just take a pallet with me, and those 3 extra pieces it's going to let me carry is really not that big of a deal considering it has such poor defense. I usually just use spider armor, take the grass pallet or the weed stem pallet around and gather the resources. And not that 3 extra pieces I could carry, not that big of a deal when you're taking a pallet around. Now, if you're not taking a pallet around, it could make a big deal, obviously, because you're going to be carrying 8 instead of 5. But honestly, other than that, it's really only useful for going into the red anthill the first time you explore it. And then, of course, if you're going in there looking for the mint chunk, or if you're going there looking for ant eggs. But as soon as you pick the eggs up, they're going to attack you. So honestly, at this point, what I do is I normally just run in there with a torch and my spider armor on, and I just sprint in there, grab the ant eggs, and get out, and I usually don't even get hit. So honestly, it's really not that great. I guess the first time you go through the red anthill, it might be useful. So looking at its report card, it's got a 1.0 for defense. It does have a 3 for stamina because it's light armor. The piece effect and set bonus, I gave it a 1. I gave them both 1 just because they're really just super situational and they're not that useful in the grand scheme of things. Overall, it's got a raw grade of 1.5, final grade of 1.85, and it comes in at a C. So that's all 11 armor sets. Let's quickly take a look at a recap of all their grades from best to worst. So here are all 11 armor sets ranked from best to worst. This is my opinion on what I think the best armors are. I tried to be it as objective as possible. Of course, you can't be objective on everything. Like, for example, the piece effects and set bonuses, I had to use my subjectivity on that. I do have 300 plus hours in the game, so I've used all the armors in some form or another in multiple different worlds, typically tested them out and made sure that I have actually used them in action and see how they work. And this is just my opinion. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my grades. If you think something's better, think something's worse, let me know down in the comments. And if there's any situations where I didn't discuss them that you could see one of these armors being useful in, let me know, because I'm always open to trying out new setups, new builds, and new class builds and stuff like that. Of course, if you want to see class builds, go check out Original Ryan's channel, Original Ryan Gaming. He has done a ton of class builds, so if you're looking to try some different weapon combinations, different armor combinations, head on over there and check out him. I'll leave a link to his channel down in the description below. But anyway, that's my opinion on the armors in the game and how I see them. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and consider subscribing for more videos just like this. If you want to support the channel even more, you can become a channel member today by clicking the join card on the screen right now, via the join button below, or using the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.